Tonight on 10-3 News, America faces a convergence of crises that are reshaping the physical, digital, and biological fabric of the nation. On the West Coast, the theoretical nightmare known as the ARK storm has become a reality, leaving California submerged and millions displaced. In Washington, the government takes unprecedented action against big tech, effectively banning the world's most popular VR headset to save a generation from digital heroin. And in supermarkets across the heartland, a quiet revolution begins as lab-grown meat hits the shelves, challenging centuries of agricultural tradition. This is the special report. We begin with the catastrophic situation unfolding across California. The state is currently under siege by a stalled Category 5 atmospheric river, a weather event of such magnitude that meteorologists have officially classified it as an arc storm scenario, a 1-in-1,000-year megaflood. For 72 consecutive hours, rain has pounded the West Coast, dumping the equivalent of 10 years' worth of precipitation in 3 days. The result is the total failure of the state's water management infrastructure. The most critical development occurred at 4 a.m. this morning. A 10-mile stretch of the Interstate 5 highway, the economic artery connecting northern and southern California, collapsed under the weight of flash floods in the Tejon Pass. This severance has effectively turned Los Angeles into an island, cutting off ground supply chains for food and medical equipment. FEMA has begun an emergency airlift operation, dubbing it the largest domestic mobilization since Hurricane Katrina. An inland sea. Further north, the destruction is even more absolute. The Central Valley, which produces 25% of the nation's food, has ceased to exist as farmland. Satellite imagery confirms that the valley has temporarily reverted to an inland sea, stretching 300 miles from Redding to Bakersfield. Agricultural economists estimate the immediate loss at $50 billion. The destruction of the almond and pistachio crops alone will send global food prices soaring in the coming weeks, but the economic cost pales in comparison to the humanitarian crisis. Threat. The immediate danger, however, lies at the Oroville Dam. Engineers report that the water level is currently inches from overtopping the emergency spillway. Unlike the crisis in 2017, the soil saturation today is absolute. Landslides are being reported across the Sierra Nevada foothills, threatening the structural integrity of the dam's foundation. If the Oroville Dam fails, a wall of water 30 feet high will surge toward Sacramento within hours. Governor Newsom has expanded the mandatory evacuation order to include 2 million residents in the inundation zone, but flooded roads are making escape nearly impossible. This disaster brings a secondary, long-term shock, the uninsurable state. Following the wildfires of 2024, major insurers had already pulled back from California. Today's flood confirms their worst actuarial models. Experts warn that by next year, vast swathes of the Golden State will be economically uninhabitable, not because of the weather, but because no bank will mortgage a home in a zone now defined as a permanent disaster area. California is drowning, and the water is still rising. Turning to a crisis of the mind. In a historic and controversial move, the FDA and FCC have issued a joint emergency order to immediately halt all sales and server operations of the Phantom X Neural VR headset. Effective midnight tonight, the world's most popular virtual reality platform will go dark. The decision follows the release of a classified Surgeon General's report, which labels the device as digital heroin. The Phantom X, unlike its predecessors, uses non-invasive neural link technology to stimulate the brain's dopamine receptors directly. This feature, marketed as total immersion, has resulted in a public health catastrophe. Hospitals across the country have reported a 300% spike in stress-induced seizures among users aged 13 to 25. More alarmingly, a condition known as VR withdrawal syndrome has emerged. Teenagers deprived of the headset exhibit symptoms identical to opioid withdrawal: tremors, vomiting, and severe psychosis. The Algo Safety Act, passed under emergency protocols, categorizes the Phantom X not as a consumer electronic, but as a Class II medical device with high abuse potential. This allows the government to mandate a recall of 50 million units currently in circulation. Protests have already erupted outside the Silicon Valley headquarters of Neuroverse, the manufacturer. Tech freedom advocates argue this is government overreach, a violation of digital rights. They claim the government is scapegoating technology for broader societal failures. However, the evidence presented to Congress was damning. Internal documents from Neuroverse leaked last week revealed that the company's algorithms were specifically tuned to maximize time in world at the expense of user health. One memo described pain points, moments when a user tries to log off, as opportunities to inject microdoses of neural stimulation to keep them engaged. As the midnight deadline approaches, millions of users are logging on for one final session. Mental health professionals are bracing for a wave of psychological distress tomorrow morning as an entire generation is forcibly unplugged from their digital reality. Last week revealed that the company's algorithms were specifically tuned to maximize time in world at the expense of user health. A state submerged, a generation unplugged, and a food system reinvented. December 16, 2025 will be remembered as the day the future arrived, not with a whimper, but with a shock. From all of us at 10-3 News, reporting on the changing face of America. Good night.